Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Overnight Action Report, where we take a look at everything that's occurred so far in the Japanese market, not only for last night's action, but for the whole entire week, because it's been a very interesting week in Asia. Now, of course, the headlines overnight were that the U.S. did have a missile attack against the Syrians in response to the chemical weapons that were deployed this week, and it is a deplorable situation. But we see that the markets initially overnight, we had the S&Ps here in the United States dropping back. We also saw safety areas like the yen, which is one of those currencies when in times of uncertainty there is a bid. The yen actually had an early bid in Japan, but the markets firmed up in response to this most recent set of events. And very interesting. I will say that I think that this market has become desensitized to the current environment that we're in right now. It's very interesting times. But with that being said, let's take a look at the Nikkei overnight. Finished up 67, up 0.36% at 18,664.60. Again, Japan is under pressure. The Japanese markets have been under pressure for the last about 8 sessions. You can see that it clearly has broken support levels of the 20 and 50-day moving averages, which is basically telling us that the short and midterm bulls, a lot of the institutional support is uncertain to say the least, and definitely on their heels. Now, the strength in the yen has not aided to catalyze the upside in Japan. And also with the uncertainty of what the policies are going to be here in the United States economically, as well as the fact that we have the Korean Peninsula extremely volatile. Now we have the Middle East volatile again, and the Russians and the United States are at odds now on how they're going to continue to pursue the Syrian push, so to speak. And so we have potentially a lot of volatility in the markets, but to say that, it's held up quite nicely this week. We're staying in a very tight range, and the Nikkei, in spite of the yen strength, which we're looking at right here, has held up quite nicely in spite of the fact that we continue to see some uncertainty. By the way, Japan did finish the week up 1.3% after that yes, they were, yes. And I was just looking at this for the week. Actually, let's look at the action on a weekly chart. Yeah, we're gonna see actually that they did finish down. There was a loss of 1.3%. I apologize for that. You can see that it actually finished on the lows. And on a weekly chart, what's interesting is that the short-term bulls, which is reference to the 20-day moving average, they're in a fight right now. Next level on the Nikkei that you're going to want to watch is going to be 18,196. So 18,200. That's going to be the next support level. There's a battle in Japan right now. So if you're looking to add Japanese exposure, I think there's 2 things that you have to look at. One is look at some potential strategies as far as if you want to be a bull, laddering in some short puts or doing put credit spreads. And if you're a bear, you're going to be looking at call credit spreads. And you can use the ETF EWJ and go back to strategy now. We talk about all of these strategies and how you can deploy that. But you're going to have to do it extremely measured, be very focused on your deployment of capital here. I would probably cut your size with the current environment to about half to 25% of your normal size, and I would ladder it in at different levels. Speaking of that, let's take a look at the Shanghai Composite. Now, China, they had a pretty substantial gain this week. Looking at the weekly chart, you can see that they finished on the best levels of the week right here, and the Shanghai Composite finished up 561 at 3286.61. So impressive week by the Chinese, and what's even more impressive is that for 6 straight sessions, the People's Bank of China did not inject liquidity into the markets. We've had some pretty positive economic data that continues to come out of China. And as you can see, it is also supported on its 20 and 50-day moving average on a weekly basis. And if you take a look at the daily chart, you can see that the bulls are definitely in control in China. We're going to see if that action continues, especially since we're expecting data out of the United States. As a matter of fact, as I was looking at it, the non-farm payrolls came out, and they were worse than expected here in the United States, while unemployment came in better than expected. So we could have some volatility, but again, like I said, the market seems to be desensitized at this stage to these kind of developments. And what's notable too about the non-farms payroll is that here in the United States, there was a big snowstorm on the week of the survey, so that could have impacted the results. Now, finally taking a look at the last two indices, the Hong Kong, the Hang Seng finished the week in the red, down 6 points at 24,267, but during the overnight session, it did challenge its 20-day moving averages. The bulls got to finish the day at its best levels, and so we see that the Hang Seng was able to stay above that short-term support level of 24,183. That's a level that you're going to want to watch very closely in Hong Kong. The property markets have been very strong, as well as the financials, so we'll continue to watch that. And the Sensex. India has been pulling back as of late, and this has been one of the strongest areas of Asia. They pulled back this week and actually finished overnight down 220 points at 29,706.61. This is some interesting action. We're going to look for a challenge in India right here at that 29,470 level. That's going to be short-term support on the daily chart for the Sensex. That's the major index in India. There has been a lot of mixed action in the financials in India. We're going to watch this very closely. There has been quite a bit of expansion economically in India. So anything that could trigger or flag that there is some uncertainty there, that could be maybe a little bit of a red flag for Asia in general, which would then, as we look to add potentially some Asian exposure, whether it's through an ETF like EFA or in the emerging markets ETF EEM, that may temper the sizing of a particular portfolio if you're adding that type of exposure to your holistic portfolio. All right, folks, that is it for the overnight action report. We'll be back on at 8:45 Eastern Time. We're going to check out everything that's going on in Europe. See you here at MarketStream.live.